It's not the passing.
Well, here in Westminster, the Lib Dem leader, Tim Farron, joins me now. And Tim, you were just telling me there that you found out when you got off a plane yesterday about Theresa May's announcement. It did take everyone by surprise. But after that, you said this election is a chance to change the direction of the country. Are you seeing this general election as being about Brexit, a second EU referendum, if you will?
Well, it's not a referendum, but it is an election where the Prime Minister has, if you like, called for an endorsement of her approach on Brexit, even though we don't know what the end result will be in 2 years' time. So this is an opportunity for the British people to change the direction of the country. And if you want the party that is opposed to a hard Brexit, that believes that leaving the single market is wrong for our country, and believes the British people should have the final say at the end of this process in 2 years' time, and you want a party that will actually provide you with a decent, strong opposition that Britain desperately needs, then the Liberal Democrats are the party for you. So we're very excited about this election, the opportunity for the British people to change the direction of the UK.
You're very excited about this. The Prime Minister in her statement yesterday said that parties such as the Lib Dems, Labour, SNP were blocking her every step of the way, making it very difficult, and that's why she's called this general election.
That's nonsense, isn't it? I mean, first of all, the Labour Party have not been blocking her, they've been voting with her. She's no need to call this election, much as I welcome it. She's called it because she's looked aside across the other side of the dispatch box, seen a Labour Party led with Jeremy Corbyn, and she couldn't resist the temptation of trying to get herself a 100-seat majority.
And so the Lib Dems, so you're now painting yourselves as the main opposition to the Conservatives. Are you going to say that based solely on Brexit? What else do the Lib Dems have to offer?
Well, if you look at what we've been talking about in the last few weeks, we are presenting to the British people a new beverage deal over our NHS and social care. One of the things that coming out of the single market will rob the British government of is the financial resources to be able to fund a decent health and social care service. And health and social care absolutely is in crisis. And we're the only party saying, look, if we want a decent health and social care system going forward that we can all rely upon from cradle to grave, then actually it will cost the British people a little bit more money. And that's what we're talking about. So we are absolutely saying that Britain needs a strong opposition, whether it be on the health service, the economy, whether it be the fact that we need a strong police force, a strong army, and indeed over Britain staying in the single market and Britain avoiding a hard Brexit. Because Britain, whether you voted out or in last June, what Britain surely needs is strong opposition. The worst governments are the ones with the worst opposition, and Theresa May is taking advantage of having the worst possible opposition in the Labour Party.
Well, come June the 9th, when those results were in, what will have been a good night for the Lib Dems? Because there is this talk about a progressive alliance, you coming together with Labour, the Green Party and others to find the best way to defeat the Conservatives, because individually you probably can't do it on your own.
Let's be really blunt about this. The reality is that Theresa May, as things stand, is heading for and seeking some form of coronation, no form of democracy at all.
How are you going to stop her then?
Well, the thought of the United Kingdom being a kind of one-party state for a generation is something that should terrify every Democrat, even those who count themselves as Conservatives. How we stop it is through the Liberal Democrats, and I'll tell you why. The SNP can only gain 1 seat off the Tories. That's all they've got left to get. So it can't be them. Nobody seriously thinks Labour are going to gain a single seat. Labour will go backwards. Therefore, the only route to Theresa May not having this coronation is a Liberal Democrat one. The strength of the Liberal Democrats throughout the country, in the northwest of England, where I'm from, the southwest, here in London, elsewhere in the UK, the strength of the Liberal Democrats will be the key as to whether Theresa May gets that coronation or whether Britain actually remains a functioning democracy.
You're up for the general election. Are you up for TV debates? It seems the Prime Minister isn't.
Yes, and I'm very disappointed in her, if I'm honest with you. It is known that 25 years ago she and I were defeated candidates together in the constituency of North West Durham up in the northeast of England, and she and I both criticised our Labour opponent, who eventually won, for not making all of the hustings. And it seems to me that she feels she's got everything to lose by going on television and debating myself and others. When all said and done, she has chosen this election. She presumably has some confidence in her position. Why won't she go out there and argue with people like me who want to challenge it?
OK, Tim Farron, really good to speak to you this morning. Busy day ahead. Thank you very much. Tim Farron there,
Morning
leader
to
of the
Mr Farron.
Morning,
so we are
Dan.
7 weeks away from another general election. What would you consider to be a good result for your party 7 weeks down the line?
Well, I think this is an opportunity for the British people to change the direction of the country. We've just been talking about the sport. Well, this contest begins 0-0, and therefore everything to play for. What I'm sure is that at the moment the British government are taking us towards a hard Brexit outside the single market, and they're doing so because they haven't got a decent, effective opposition. And what the Liberal Democrats offer is for the British people to make a choice of a different direction for our country, to resist a hard Brexit, to stay in the single market, and to have what every Democrat surely believes Britain needs, and that is a strong and decent opposition. After all, Theresa May only really called this election because she looked across the dispatch box, saw Jeremy Corbyn and thought it was the political equivalent of stealing candy off a baby. Well, this mustn't be a coronation. This must be a properly fought democratic general election. The Liberal Democrats will provide the only serious opposition within it.
To continue your sporting analogy, you say it's 0-0 and you want to be the main opposition. It's not really. You're starting on minus 224. The main opposition are Labour, who have a vast amount of seats compared to yours at the last election.
Yeah, I can do nothing to affect, the result of the last election. I can do quite a bit, I hope, to affect the result of the next one in just a few weeks' time. You can't call the Labour Party the main opposition when they held Theresa May's hand as they leapt off together the hard Brexit cliff edge and put our country's future at risk without any guarantees of what kind of deal we'll get at the end of all this. And whether you voted Leave or Remain last June, the point is in 2 years' time, Theresa May is asking us in this election now to give her a mandate to deliver any old Brexit stitched up by mandarins in Whitehall and bureaucrats in Brussels that we'll all have to live with for 2 or 3 generations. That is not democracy. So if you think that there's something that can be done about changing that direction now, the Liberal Democrats offer you the opportunity to do just that. Whether you voted Leave or Remain last June, whoever you have normally voted for, this is the moment where democracy must come back to life in this country. A one-party state, a coronation this next 7 weeks will be a disaster for democracy and a disaster for Britain, and only the Liberal Democrats offer you the chance for that not to happen.
Farron, this is not another EU referendum. This is not a one-issue election. This is a general election. This is about the NHS. This is about education. This is about social care. These are huge issues. It's not just about Brexit.
Yeah, too right. I mean, when all's said and done, politicians who lecture the electorate and tell them what this election is all about are likely to be told by the electorate, no, it's not, it's about these things. You'll recall that Zach Goldsmith caused a by-election that he lost the Liberal Democrats before Christmas, claiming the electorate was about one thing. The electorate said, no, sorry, chum, it's about this, these other matters. So, yes, you're quite right. A whole range of issues needs to be discussed. The fact that our NHS and social care service is in crisis. There needs to be a kind of new beverage deal, a new deal for the British people so that we'll have care from cradle to grave going forward. I'm bound to say, though, given the government themselves have admitted they were £100 billion a year worse off because of leaving the single market, we won't be able to afford good schools, good health care, good social care, a strong army. If we don't remain in the single market, we simply won't have the money. So this is going to come back again, I'm sure, to Brexit, but it'll be about a lot of other issues besides.
You keep talking about this sort of hard Brexit against soft Brexit. Surely, if Theresa May wins this election with an improved majority, that gives her more wriggle room to negotiate a softer Brexit, which you are in favour of.
No, it gives quite the opposite. What it does, it gives her a mandate to do anything she likes in the next 2 years and impose on the British people, however they voted last June, however they will vote this June, any kind of deal that we might have at the end of it all. And membership of the single market is critical in all this. Remember, Nigel Farage spent the last several years touring the United Kingdom saying that Britain should be more like Norway and Switzerland, who are, of course, outside the EU and inside the single market. Theresa May is asking for a blank cheque to deliver upon Britain something more extreme than UKIP have been asking for the last several years. For the sake of our security, our power in the world and our prosperity here at home, it's important we stay in the single market. Giving the Prime Minister a blank cheque to deliver any old Brexit in 2 years' time is the opposite of democracy. That's why a strong opposition is vital, and Labour sitting on the fence on this biggest issue for generations means that they're not a serious opposition, and frankly the fact that they're not a serious opposition is the real reason Theresa May gave in to the temptation and called this early election.
Let me mention a former Labour leader, Tony Blair, has issued a plea for voters to back candidates, he said, who will be ready to vote down Brexit if it's in the national interest. Would you share a platform with Mr Blair?
Well, I shared a platform during the referendum with lots of people, Conservatives, Labour, Green, SNP and the like.
I'm somebody who with Mr Blair?
Believes in understanding other people. My view is that the only pathway for the Conservatives to in any way lose this election is a Liberal Democrat one. If you look around the country, the SNP can only mathematically gain 1 seat off the Tories. That's all they've got left to lose to them. The Labour Party clearly are not going to make gains. They're likely to go very far backwards, and that leaves you with one option, and that is a series of Liberal Democrat gains around the country, from the north to the south of the United Kingdom, that gives us the opportunity to make sure that Theresa May has to answer to the British people. And that means MPs of all political colours getting together to fight that kind of hard Brexit that is currently on the table.
So is that a yes then? I don't think you said yes or no there.
I have no plans to share a platform with Tony Blair, I'm afraid.
OK, that's a definite no, even if someone else was to suggest it to you?
Well, look, my job is to make sure, as I said now, that we rebuild the Liberal Democrats and use as the only pathway, and I think we are the only pathway, through which the Conservatives could possibly lose this election. Labour will go backwards, the SNP can't go any further against the Conservatives, and that means a Conservative coronation, the opposite of democracy, unless the Liberal Democrats can be that strong opposition that we're now aiming to be, giving the British people the choice of avoiding a hard Brexit, avoiding leaving the single market, and having enough money to be able to spend on our health, social care, education services, on our army, on our police force. Those things are vital, and in an election there needs to be a contrast of propositions. The Conservative proposition towards a hard Brexit, Brexit at any cost, is clear, sadly, and the Liberal Democrats' proposition is equally clear. What is not clear is what Labour stands for.
Outside the Westminster bubble, I'm sure you saw Brenda from Bristol yesterday saying not another election when she was asked. Are you concerned, and are politicians concerned about voter apathy? We're getting a lot of people coming on this morning saying we don't want another vote. We're bored of this already. Yes, some people will be engaged, but what about the Brendas from Bristol?
Yeah, I have an enormous amount of sympathy for Brenda from Bristol, and my dad would definitely utterly agree with her. Look, I think the reality is, are people fed up of elections, the referenda, elections? It's not the elections themselves, it's people like me on the telly all the time that I think they get fed up with, and I completely understand that. But in the end, I think people are not fed up of democracy, and what would be far worse is, in 2 years' time, the British people being told that for the next couple of generations you will have to deal with and live with the consequences of a very hard Brexit that the government thought it had a mandate to deliver, without the British people having the final say at the end of it all. So elections, election campaigns can be wearisome for people. I buy that, I look forward to it, but then again, I'm strange. People can get worn out by elections. What I think they're not worn out by is the process of democracy. We should be very proud of our democracy, and that is why, Dan, I'm bound to say, we desperately need a strong and decent opposition. Theresa May mustn't have a coronation. It'd be terrible for the country, terrible for democracy.
I wouldn't put "I'm strange" on your manifesto if I were you, but Tim, I appreciate what you're saying.
Thanks for the advice. Yeah.
Thank you very much.